Well, the last couple of weeks have been intense.
Very, but it's been such a great learning experience.
Are you talking about the World War II project?
Yes.
A lot of us actually took part in this project. In fact, I can see Chungshu and the rest walking towards this way.
Oh, hi.
Join us.
Come on.
Hey, how's it going? Been busy?
Good. You?
Busy, very busy. What are we talking about here?
We were just talking about the World War II project.
Well, that must have been quite the experience.
Well, and also heartbreaking.
Tom, this was your first time tackling such a project, wasn't it? How did it go for you?
It was great. I did a story with Meng. What I found so interesting was that Western narratives often frame the start of World War II in Europe in 1939. But China's fight against fascism began much earlier, with the Japanese invasion of northeast China in 1931. This really changed my view of the understanding of the Second World War.
Precisely why it's so important to put the stories out there to clear such misconceptions about World War II. Tom, you remember this huge photo wall in the Museum of War of Resistance?
Yes, looking at that photo wall, it was hard to imagine how China survived the war.
Each picture had a story to tell, such strong messages.
Right. My earliest exposure to the war actually came from my grandparents. You know, my grandma was born in a military family. Let me just throw her picture up on the screen so you guys can have a look. At the bottom left, I've also brought some pictures here. So her dad was sort of a big shot in the new Fourth Army. She got to tag along with the Army from day one. Wow. And guess what? She eventually signed up too. So she saw everything firsthand. The gritty reality of the battles and the incredible bravery it took to fight for our country. And Mama, I know your grandparents also fought in the war, didn't they?
Yeah, 3 of them more, but they're all gone now. My grandmother on my father's side lived to see the 70th anniversary. And she also watched me covering this event live in front of the TV. I think there she is. And I also brought this medal. She was awarded this medal on the 70th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Right. Wow. Yeah. I mean, this generation of veterans are so precious. Their memories hold truths that no history book could ever hold. Well, here we are, Tom, at the Lugo Bridge. It's also known as the Marco Polo Bridge in the West.
I've read about this place. So this is where China's fight against fascism started.
Well, yes and no. On July 7th, 1937, Japanese troops launched their full-scale invasion here. But China's resistance against fascism began much earlier. In 1931 was the September 18th incident.
What happened then?
It was a dark day in history. Japanese forces staged a railway explosion near Shenyang. False flag to justify attacking Chinese troops that same night. It marked the beginning of Japan's invasion of northeast China.
The war against fascism. We call it World War II, but it didn't just begin in Europe.
Well, long before Germany invaded Poland and the bombs fell on Pearl Harbor, there was already a war burning in the east. I spoke with a historian for some more explanation.
For a long time, the prevailing view was that the Second World War started with the outbreak of war in Europe. However, research shows that the conflict in China began as early as September 1931. There were 2 hotbeds of the war, Germany and Japan. Japan began its aggression the earliest. It started its invasion of China in 1931. Therefore, China's resistance, which began in 1931, was the prologue to the global anti-fascist war.
The world reacted immediately. Global media unanimously denounced Japan's invasion as calculated imperialist aggression, exploiting turmoil to seize Chinese territory.
So while Europe was still at peace, China fought alone.
Yes, and for years, no allies, no lend-lease, just resistance.
We're touching history here.
All these bullet scars mark the beginning of a full-blown war. Battle lines stretched more than 1,800 kilometers, with fighting raging across over 10 provinces of China, covering 1.6 million square kilometers. Around 400 million people in China lived under the shadow of war. Well, Tom, here at this museum, it really tells us how this war is remembered today.
Let's have a look around.
Yeah. Japan's invasion and China's nationwide resistance quickly drew global attention. Major international newspapers like the Washington Post, the New York Times, and Pravda reported on the conflict, while U.S. President Roosevelt implicitly criticized Japan's aggression and noted that the Chinese people were the first to stand up and fight against the aggressors in this war.
I can't imagine what the war cost the country.
China knows only too well the cost of war, especially the human cost. Each picture here has a story to tell. 5,098 photos represent the number of days that the Chinese people fought this war.
How many lives were lost?
35 million soldiers and civilians. $95 million were displaced, driven from their homes into hunger and terror. And beyond the lives lost, the economic cost was enormous, over $600 billion US.
How does a nation survive that?
Sometimes it's not about surviving, but about refusing to surrender, even when hope seemed gone.
因为我们受侵略时间最长嘛。
Among all occupied countries, China suffered the longest invasion and paid the heaviest price. This is simply because our strength then was no match for Japan's, but our will to resist was. Surrender might have spared lives, but we chose to fight. Outgunned, we fought with spirit and resolve. We fought fiercely, even knowing the cost.
我的钢铁比不过你，但是我只能比人，比我的抵抗意志。
14 years and millions dead, yet so few outside China know this story. I'm realising just how much history is often overlooked.
You're right.
This song, it sounds so sad. What's the story behind it?
Well, it's a story about a shepherd boy named Wang Erxiao. He led Japanese troops into an ambush to save his village and was killed in their rage. He was only 13 years old.
He was just a child, and he gave his life.
He was just one of many. Women and children all across China joined the resistance. They carried supplies, gathered intelligence. Some even picked up weapons to fight. This war spared no one.
When a nation is fighting for its survival, everybody becomes a soldier. Are those who lived through this still with us?
Yes, there are, but we're losing them as time passes. Their memories hold truths that no history book can ever hold. Chen Xiangli joined the war at only 16, one of millions who rose to fight for his home and his country. Now 103, he recalls a life shaped by resistance.
一开始没有枪，我给我一个刀，这么宽这么长。
They gave me a big knife with a red tassel and 4 grenades and told me, take rifles from the Japanese with these. I fought in tunnels and minefields, even built my own explosives. Once, snow hit our air vents, but the rising heat gave us away. We buried the guns and only carried grenades. If the Japanese dug through, we'd charge. Whoever made it out fought.
打说不怕，恨敌人呐，要怕搁在后头了。
I wasn't afraid during battle. I hated the enemy so much, so I put fear aside. Before battle, we wrote our names and villages and chose successors. We were ready to die, but first to fight.
Guys, when we talk about preserving historical truths, one particular group comes to mind, and that's the so-called comfort women. These were actually sexual slaves during wartime.
Sadly, Zhongxu, many of them died of torture and abuse, and those who are living suffer enormous pain both physically and psychologically. And I traveled to Shanghai for a couple of days, and I visited the Shanghai Comfort Women History Museum. There I talked to Professor Su Zhuliang, who founded the museum. He and his wife, Professor Chen Lifei, dedicated over 3 decades to uncover the truth of those victims. And they shared with me a lot of evidence, diaries, and pieces of stories that they suffer. Well, those were unimaginable sufferings.
I mean, just think about the first Korean survivor who broke the silence in 1991. She inspired thousands across Asia to speak up, and I think that's truly remarkable. You know, Japanese occupation was a significant part of our history curriculum back at home in Singapore. So for me personally, you know, listening to the stories of these victims, it brings back painful memories of what we were taught back at school.
You're right, Gaz. Many Southeast Asian countries suffer from that pain too. And according to evidence and testimonies which show that over 400,000 victims across Asia suffer from unimaginable pain during that period. And according to Professor Su, well, he told me that now the most urgent thing is to call for more international recognition and effort.
我的是原始受害者，我今年都96岁结婚，所以希望日本政府承认战争罪行，为你道歉。
Heng Zhuying is one of the last 7 known survivors on the Chinese mainland. This testimony, recorded in Hunan in June 2025, with renewed urgency, is driven by a critical international effort, the Voices of the Comfort Women Archive. Professor Su's journey to preserve history and demand justice began in 1991 when he heard Kim Hak-sun's testimony. He and his wife, Professor Chen Li-fei, have dedicated themselves to uncovering the truth. In 1999, he founded the Research Center on the Comfort Women issue at Shanghai Normal University. For over 30 years, they traveled through China. They identified over 300 survivors and authenticated a mountain of evidence, diaries, letters, and local government records as concrete proof of the abusive system and the Japanese military's direct involvement.
即使在日本，有大量的证据表明，日本政府和军队推动实施了这个性奴隶制度，他们是有责任的。
Professor Su's research center doesn't just document history. It supports the survivors. A relief fund provides crucial health care, financial aid, and even burial assistance. They also promote academic research on gender violence and wartime trauma.
何叔叔，我来看奶奶。
张如意来了！哎呀，好久不见了。
我们最近2位博士生在湖南探望6位幸存者，一方面呢，把15000元下半年的生活费给这些老人，慰问他们，同时呢，请他们写了一封要求书，这封信是要给教科文组织的，希望你们能够认真的工作，把这件事情完成。 所以录着视频，按了手印。
The memory of the Comfort Woman is not confined to one country. The statue of peace next to me is a symbol of the victims of the Comfort Woman system. Similar statues have been set up in many countries and regions, including South Korea, the United States, Japan, and Germany. The United Nations and international bodies have voiced support. UN human rights reports since the 1990s have condemned the Comfort Woman system as sexual slavery and urged Japan to apologize. In 2007, parliaments in the US, Canada, the Netherlands, and others passed resolutions demanding Japan accept responsibility. In 2014, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights called for a comprehensive, just, and lasting solution. In 2016, UN experts reiterated that Japan owes an apology and reparations. In 2016, civil society groups from 8 countries and regions, including China, South Korea, and the Philippines, united to submit an archive of Comfort Women's testimonies, artifacts, and records to UNESCO's Memory of the World program. But a Japanese nationalist group filed a competing nomination, turning the review into a geopolitical flashpoint. In October 2017, UNESCO postponed both submissions, calling for dialogue. As of 2025, there has yet to be any significant effort to reconcile the two bids.
of the continuing effects.
Despite Japan's reluctance, the comfort women's suffering and their quest for justice have been chronicled.
Our intention is to preserve these comfort woman documents for the future generations, for their peace education, history education, human rights education. It is essential.
从这样一个反人类的战争罪行，我们人类必须要铭记，必须要予以谴责，必须要追究战争的责任，这样才能够铭记历史，捍卫和平。
From silent victims to outspoken witnesses, from obscurity to the global stage, the journey from amnesia to remembrance continues. We have the responsibility to listen, to remember, to ensure that the promise of never again truly encompasses all victims, especially the women whose suffering the world once chose to forget.
Such strong condemnations there, and this is exactly what we need to help highlight those atrocities.
Unit 731 was another atrocity. It's like a Holocaust in the East, but so little is known about it internationally. The unit really reminded me of some of the Nazi experiments.
Here in China, they do have a Unit 731 museum in Harbin, and it does give you the vibe of a former Nazi camp. The exhibits are chilling. You've got gruesome surgical instruments, gas chambers, vivisection. When you look at all those experiments, it wasn't science, really. It was torture.
The medical experiments were so cruel.
It was. I mean, Tom, I agree with you. I mean, I can't even begin to imagine what these prisoners would have gone through. You know, one experiment that really bothers me is, you know, how you're alive and unsedated and you're cut open, your organs are exposed. I mean, the cruelty is just, you know, unimaginable. Now, Unit 731 also branched out to several Southeast Asian countries, including Singapore. So doing this story for me was very close to home. What I also remember back at school when we were studying is that China repeatedly called on Japan to confront history. Some former Japanese soldiers did come forward to apologize, but Japan never officially recognized the atrocities that took place at Unit 731. That's a pity.
ここでは本当にお祈りしただけで結構ですのでよろしくお願いします。そう本当にあれですね。無謀のことをやってしまって住民の皆さんたちの本当にご迷惑をおかけしてしまいました。よろしくお願いします。
Heartfelt words from Hideo Shimizu during a memorial service in Harbin. He was once part of Japan's Unit 731 Youth Corps, a secret biological and chemical weapons research unit in the northeastern city of China. Chinese and other prisoners of war were the victims of human experimentation during World War II. Shimizu was sent to the unit at just 14 years old. He was there for only 4 months, but 80 years later, he still remembers the horrors, atrocities, and most importantly, the sufferings.
印象に残ったのはね、女の方の中にいる子供、なんかもうお腹に入ったまんま標本になってましたから、まあそういったこともね、なぜこんなね妊婦の標本までこんなことをしなきゃいけないのかなと思って、どうしてこんなね小さな子供たち、またお腹の中にいた子供たちなんかをね解剖してしまうのか不思議に思いました。解剖局に私の今300台というのは本当に300台のものを踊りそうになっていると300台というのをずっと取ったのが約3分の1。これはどうしてもすごいだけならって言ってるのは 정말 의미 없고 이런 아도 그냥 쇼다고 이집따라 아빠가 그래 그냥 우리가 지금 대화 하나 하고 싶어. 그리고 솔직히 제가
Unit 731 was a central hub for Japan's warfare operations throughout China and Southeast Asia. The Japanese army had other bacteria units across China as well. The aim was to develop biological weapons for battlefield deployment. Chang Baoshan was a victim. He lived with his family in Chuchou, Zhejiang province. At just 11 years old, he witnessed the deaths of his mother and younger brother from cholera. He and his father were infected with anthrax bacteria. Both of them later developed a disease known locally as rotten leg illness. In March 2021, the then 89-year-old Chang underwent a high-risk surgery to amputate his legs.
这些技师呢，他们拥有医学背景，大多出自日本的医学院校，再次证明了以731部队为主的日本细菌战同日本医学界的协同犯罪是自上而下、有规模、有组织的国家犯罪，而不是个人行为。
731是细菌武器啊，伤人害人。这个516呢是化学武器，我们管它叫恶魔兄弟。
Half of China's territory was hit by chemical weapons. Japan reportedly conducted chemical warfare more than 1,300 times from 1937 to 1945. In 1939 alone, it conducted 455 campaigns. This means a chemical attack was carried out every 19 hours and 15 minutes. The trauma still haunts Chinese people. Today, abandoned chemical weapons have been found in more than 120 locations in 18 provinces, autonomous regions, and municipalities across China. Experts estimate that there are about 2,000 victims of abandoned chemical weapons in China. 80 years have passed since the end of World War II. Only a few former Japanese soldiers like Hideo Shimizu have stepped forward to confess their crimes. Many remain in the shadows. But history cannot be denied, forgotten, or rewritten. We revisit these events not to fuel hatred, but to honor the victims, safeguard the truth, and remind the world peace is fragile. Every life matters.
The human cost of war is devastating and long-lasting, and we owe it to history to make sure that the world never forgets it.
I agree with you 100%. And for that exact reason, in my episode, we decided to use technology to reach out to the younger generation and really piece together historical facts for everybody to see.
How did you do it?
We used some pretty mind-blowing technology. Let me show you.
Using technology to bring the story to life, that's genius.
I mean, that's a must because younger generations today are bombarded with information. It's so easy for them to become numb or insensitive to history. So our vision was virtual production technology forces empathy. When our viewers hear just casualty numbers, they might not feel anything. But when they actually see corpses piled up, caskets scattered around, it stops being just a historical story. It then becomes a human experience everybody can identify with.
That's amazing, Zhongshu. History isn't just dates and numbers.
No, it's not. Sometimes it's a warning. The Nanyang massacre happened because of fascist dehumanization. It is our hope that with the technology available today, everyone can realize that remembering doesn't have to be passive. and everyone can participate in preserving historical truths. A ceremony is held each year at the Memorial Hall of the Victims in Nanjing Massacre by Japanese invaders. The hall was built at the burial site of the victims. On December 13, 1937, the Japanese army swept into Nanjing. The horrific massacre that took place over the next 6 weeks saw 300,000 people killed. Records from the International Military Tribunal for the Far East show the Japanese army committed murder, torture, rape, robbery, and the destruction of property during that time.
The killing began immediately in several ways, often by individual Japanese soldiers or up to 30 soldiers together going about, each one seeming to have the power of life or death. And then soon there was organized killing of great bodies of men.
The killing happened every day. On December 16, 1937, over 10,000 disarmed soldiers and civilians were gunned down at Jiangdongmen. 1 day later, on December 17th, around 3,000 were shot dead at Meitan Port, with the survivors burned alive. On December 18th, 57,000 Chinese refugees and disarmed soldiers were slaughtered at Caoxie Gorge by the Yangtze River. Their bodies set on fire. The investigation by the Nanjing War Crimes Tribunal revealed that Japanese troops had committed 28 mass slaughters, killing 190,000 people, and 858 scattered massacres, killing over 150,000. In total, over 300,000 Chinese were indiscriminately murdered within weeks. 20 days before the massacre began, the Nanjing municipal government wrote in an official letter that the city's population was approximately over 500,000. The 300,000 deaths included captured defending soldiers and unarmed civilians, meaning over half of the population were killed, leaving behind a ghost city. At the Memorial Hall of the Victims in Nanjing Massacre by Japanese invaders, an installation releases a drop of water every 12 seconds, representing the frequency of deaths during the 6-week-long massacre. Besides mass killings, the military tribunal also found around 20,000 cases of rape occurred in the first month of the Japanese occupation. There are about 720 hours in a month, meaning approximately 28 people were victims of rape every hour. If we put each of the rape victims' handprints on a piece of A4 paper, a stack of 20,000 would reach 2 meters high. And taller than me. If we put those 20,000 pages together, they would cover an area of 1,247 square meters, equal to nearly 3 basketball courts. While hundreds of thousands died and thousands were raped, there were also survivors. They have carried the wounds of the Nanjing Massacre in their hearts and minds for the past nearly 80 years. But the number of survivors is also decreasing, with fewer than 30 alive by mid-2025. Over the years, the survivors have testified to the atrocities they experienced and witnessed, ensuring that history is not forgotten. As Auschwitz survivor Elie Wiesel wrote, "To forget the dead would be akin to killing them a second time.
While we acknowledge these atrocities through our stories, let's not forget the sufferings of Chinese expatriates during World War II.
That's right. Ever heard of the WWII guerrillas? Now, these were young Chinese who had gone to the Philippines to make a living. Then Pearl Harbor happened. Manila fell and evacuation ships left. They stayed and they defended a country that wasn't even their own.
Wow, they're so selfless. Chinese kids defending the Philippines.
Exactly. Most of them were teenagers who were barely in their 20s. And I met Wang Qingqing, the daughter of the first WWII commander, now in her 70s. She handed me this old cookie tin full of sun-faded photos and letters. Then she whispered one line that stopped my heart. She said, "Dad, the world you bled for turned out better than we dared to dream." 父亲，这盛世如你所愿. No kidding, straight up chills, goosebumps from scalp to ankle.
Wow, Chuyan, these are like true heroes that never make the textbooks. I mean, most of us, I'm sure, we are unaware of these warriors. I know you spoke to another group of heroes as well.
Yeah, so don't forget the Nanyang Volunteers. So picture this, 1939, Road of Death. 24 hairpin turns carved into cliffs taller than any skyline.
Well, that's Myanmar Road, that right? I've seen the photos of the trucks teetering on the edge of the cliffs.
That is the one. So that was the lifeline of the country during the war. Back then, China desperately needed mechanics and drivers. So more than 3,000 young Chinese left their cushy jobs from Singapore, Penang, Jakarta, and answered one newspaper ad that says, "China needs you." So they drove down supplies down that road under constant attack. Over 1,000 people died, and that road is about 1,000 kilometers long, so the math is brutal. One grave per kilometer.
It's nice to know that today people still go back to that road to honor the legacy of those warriors. Any of them still around?
Unfortunately, no, but I was given the opportunity to be in the passenger seat of their memories. You'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
This was a group of warriors who vanished from the map. Their stories lie hidden in the corners of the emigrant hometowns of southeastern China, flowing in the bloodlines of descendants in foreign lands. Amid the flames of World War II, a group of overseas Chinese in the Philippines banded together to fight against Japanese aggressors on foreign soil. These young heroes called themselves the Philippine Chinese Anti-Japanese Guerrilla Forces, known as the WWII.
华资在抗击法西斯战斗中发挥了很大的作用，所以他们当时把他们的一些物件都给保留下来了。对，这个菲律宾这个华资。
In 1942, deep in the jungles of Luzon Island, the WWII was officially established. Wang Qingqing's father, Wang Hanjie, served as the commander of this guerrilla army.
这支队伍当时只有50多个人，给他命名为四八支队。他们这支队伍将延续新四军八路军的一些传统，所以叫做四八支队。那后来才改名叫华侨抗日游击支队。
The members of the guerrilla army were from China's southern provinces of Fujian and Guangdong. They devoted themselves to the anti-Japanese aggressions fighting in this Southeast Asian country, fought side by side with local Filipinos.
我们是个侨乡嘛，晋江人多地少，所以很多人都下南洋去讨生活。他们都很年轻，都是10几、20几岁的人。这些华侨青年基本上都是 家里贫穷下南洋来谋生的。
Wang Hanjie's fellow townsman Zhang Guodun was also one of them.
So when he came to the Philippines, he just did what my grandfather asked him, just help manage the business and all. But during World War II, when Japanese attacked the Philippines, he cannot just stand on the sides any longer. So he decided to take up arms and he decided to join the WWII movement.
From May 1942 to August 1945, WWII, led by Wang Hanjie, engaged in over 260 battles of various scales, killed, wounded, or captured over 2,000 enemy soldiers, and seized nearly 1,000 weapons of various types, dealing heavy blows to the aggressors. Behind the glory of victory lay the ultimate sacrifice of 77 young commanders and fighters. Defending their second homeland, they now rest eternally on Philippine soil. In a battle, Zhang Guodun was unfortunately captured by enemy forces. During his month-long imprisonment, despite enduring severe torture, he remained steadfast and unyielding. This is Professor Chen Yande. His father, Chen Zhenjia, was only 19 years old when he charged into battle as a machine gunner. Professor Chen takes great pride in his father's wartime experience.
因为我父亲已经不在了嘛，就我代表来接受这个奖状。奖状是以整个菲律宾退伍军人总会名义颁发的，这点也可以证明，说菲律宾人民是很认可你这支队伍的。
In 1992, on the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the founding of WWII, the Philippine government's postal service issued a set of 4 commemorative stamps. One of them, marked with the number 48, was created to honor the WWII, serving as a historical testament to the friendship between China and the Philippines.
History told us that through centuries, the Filipinos and the Chinese have common fate and destiny. Whatever affect one nation will have impact on the other, being close neighbors. The darkest period of Philippine history during the Japanese occupation highlighted this common fate and destiny. They suffered together, they endured hardships together, and they fought together against a common enemy for the sake of freedom. 面前是一块块冰冷的石头，可是这些石碑、墓碑的下面，曾经也是一条条鲜活的生命。为什么不该让大家知晓？为什么不该让后人记住他们呢？没有他们，有我们的今天吗？世界并不安宁。 这不是个和平的年代，但是我们有个和平的环境。真的，先辈为我们做了太多太多。
They will not be forgotten. Many of us owe our existence to them. Some of them are even our relatives, and they should be part of not just of Philippine history, but part of the history of the Second World War.
In the autumn of 1939, as coastal ports fell one after another, China's maritime connections with the outside world were completely severed. At this critical moment of national survival, a rugged highway, the Yunnan-Myanmar Road, became the sole transportation route for wartime supplies. Known as the lifeline of the War of Resistance, the Yunnan-Myanmar Road was also dubbed the Road of Death due to the treacherous terrain of its 24-turn stretch, frequent Japanese bombings, and rampant tropical diseases. The road was in urgent need of drivers and mechanics, but there was no time for temporary training. At this critical moment, patriotic overseas Chinese leader Tan Kah-ki stepped forward. In 1939, he called on young Chinese from Southeast Asia to return home and support the war effort.
They believed that without a nation, there would be no home. That's why during the War of Resistance against Japanese aggression, overseas Chinese contributed in every way they could, some with money, others with labor. And those who worked on the Yunnan-Myanmar Road, transporting military supplies, as they put it themselves, they were serving their country with utmost loyalty. Jiang Yinsheng was the youngest of the group. Back when he first began driving, he struggled so much that he sometimes had to drive standing up.
Jiang Yinsheng, not over 3,000 overseas Chinese youth risked their lives on the road, transporting hundreds of thousands of tons of wartime supplies to the front lines. From 1939 to 1942, the Nanyang Volunteers group transported 500,000 tons of military supplies, more than 15,000 auto vehicles, and plenty of civilian supplies through the road of death. Every kilometer blood sacrifice, with over 1,000 mechanics perished along this artery. One life extinguished per kilometer paved. Miraculously, Jiang Yinsheng survived the war. In recognition of his bravery, he was awarded a commemorative medal for his role in the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression. This medal stands not just as a personal honor, but as an eternal testament to the heroic sacrifices of all Nanyang volunteer mechanics. This June, Malaysian Chinese communities organized the Retracing the Yunnan-Myanmar Road Journey memorial event. 18 young ethnic Chinese representatives traveled from Malaysia to Yunnan, walking in their forebears' footsteps along the historic route. Through route retracing, memorial visits, they resurrected this fading wartime legacy. These young people also posted the photos they took during the event on social media to share this piece of history with more people. In their captions, they wrote, "Remembering history is the way to better safeguard peace." The bullet holes on the hillside and the ruins of broken walls are evidence left by war, and they also deepen our understanding of the word peace. One netizen commented, "Great heroes and the inheritors of culture." This August, the Kwanton Cemetery held a major memorial ceremony while unveiling the newly completed Nanyang Chinese Mechanics Peace Memorial Park and Museum within its grounds.
We are putting on the 3,200 over the volunteers' name on top of the wall. And I think for the young, at least they know, hey, this is my grandfather. My grandfather's name is, we are doing it for all those little people when they contributed at that time.
The smoke of war has long faded, but Mr. Tankaki's unwavering patriotism and the Nanyang Volunteers' bravery and dedication remain etched into the soul of this land as a timeless legacy.
Seriously, guys, such brave souls, they gave their lives for the peace we live in today.
And what's heartwarming is that the world recognized China's sacrifice and its efforts to form a united global front against fascism.
And China is a major contributor to UN peacekeeping mission in terms of funding and personnel.
That's right. It shows how China's committed to maintaining this post-war security order within the UN framework.
Mama, didn't you meet up with some peacekeepers in your story?
I did have a chance to talk to several of them. There was this pilot who carried supplies and hope to places torn by conflict. And the first thing he said to me was that their motto is to keep oneself aside if the world needs him. And this is exactly what he did. And there was also this doctor who signed up for South Sudan again after his first mission there 4 years ago. And also a nurse who left her 6-year-old to care for those in need in Liberia.
You see, we need such voices to tell the world, their sacrifice comes at a cost.
Exactly, Gus. And they're facing danger every minute, every hour in such places. I can't even begin to imagine what they have been through.
Well, over the decades, we did have dozens of fallen heroes. I saw a letter from one of the fathers. It says that it's been 260 days since you left us, and your mom's been calling your nickname in her dreams. Your duty was one of glory, and you're the pride of the family. I had tears in my eyes. We need to hear their stories. Kang Feifei once served as the deputy leader of a UN helicopter unit in one of the most tumultuous places in the world. South Sudan has reported the deadliest attack on its border with Sudan since 2021, involving a boundary dispute. The attacks occurred on Saturday in the neighboring Abyei region, an oil-rich area jointly administered by the two countries. Abyei, a 10,500 square kilometer territory claimed by Sudan and South Sudan, has remained in limbo since South Sudan's independence in 2011. The UN administers the area, but clashes over land, cattle, and oil continue to drive violence and displacement. Kang's unit carried out vital missions in this fragile area. This includes transporting nearly 7,000 personnel, delivering more than 300 tons of supplies, and flying over 200,000 kilometers. Many of their flights were medical evacuations, flying the wounded from the battlefield to hospitals.
Most casualties were critical, such as gunshots or shrapnel. We evacuated them straight from the battlefield. It showed true humanitarian spirit and the responsibility and compassion of our nation.
Kang's stories reflect a broader commitment. China has over 1,800 peacekeepers in 9 UN missions, from South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of the Congo to Lebanon. They include engineers, medics, infantry, and aviators, making China the largest troop contributor among Security Council permanent members. Financially, China shoulders 18.69% of the UN's peacekeeping budget, which is greater than the UK, France, and Russia combined. Peacekeeping also exists off the battlefield. In South Sudan, where conflict overlaps with poverty and fragile healthcare, medical units are often the first line of survival. In late 2021, neurosurgeon Zhang Yuan joined the 8th Chinese Battalion in Juba.
Local medical resources are limited, so the medicines we bring, such as those for diarrhea, fever, malaria, and common ointments for skin problems or insect bites, are very useful. Everywhere we go, people welcome us warmly.
Doctors like Zhang Yuan show that peacekeeping is about combat, as well as protecting lives under threat. That responsibility is increasingly shared by women on the front line. Today, women account for just over 10% of UN uniformed peacekeepers, which is more than 6,200 in total. Their role has also expanded from clinics to mine clearance, often in environments where women and children suffer the most. A milestone came in 2015 when President Xi Jinping pledged an 8,000-strong standby force, the first helicopter unit for UN missions, more medical and engineering teams, and $100 million for African peace operations.
We're committed to peaceful development. No matter how the international landscape may evolve and how strong China may become, China will never pursue hegemony, expansion, or a sphere of influence.
These military operations are done well that are restricted to humanitarian areas, peacekeeping, counterpiracy efforts. So with all these efforts, it actually tells you how China's global security initiative would look like, right? It's not about killing people. It's not about conquering people. It's about helping people. It's about protecting people. With Chinese PLA's, huge and positive and exceptional involvement in the world, China's contribution is good for the well-being of other people.
From the legacy of World War II to the challenges of today, China's vision of peace has been shaped by sacrifice and carried forward through action. 8 decades later, the lesson endures. Peace must be defended and never taken for granted.
I'm so glad I took part in this project. I feel I learned so much about Chinese history and people.
So did we, as we went deeper into each story during production and interviews.
Yeah, just as the old Chinese saying goes, we gain new insights from reviewing history.
We hope you've enjoyed our program. If you want to catch our full episodes, please feel free to check out our webpage shown right here on the screen.
And that's it for this special edition of our World War II series. I'm Kasturi Manikam.
I'm Wang Mengmang.
I'm Tom Surlis.
I'm Li Qiuyuan.
And I'm Hong Na.
I'm Zhong Shi. Stay tuned to
CGTN.